Hello, everyone. Apologies for being 1 minute late. We'll just wait for people to join. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the second of our Web3 Wednesdays talks. I'm sure you've seen the first one by Clemens with updates on hot takes from the ecosystem. And I hope you will enjoy this one as much as the previous one. So I'll let just people join. So let's wait a couple of more minutes and we'll start it off. Great. Okay, well, I guess the attendees kind of slowed down, so we'll keep it. We'll kick it off now, and hopefully that gives us more time for questions afterwards. So it is my pleasure to host John McDonald from Self, who's also like a very old-time cypherpunk and a very interesting person. So I think the first thing to start with will be a little bit of John's introduction and background and what he's doing now. We'll then give the stage to John to do a talk about the work that the stuff that he's been working on. We'll see a demo, and then we'll have a little bit more of a fireside chat. And I most encourage you to put your questions, raise your hands if you want to chat to John. He's a very friendly person. He won't bite. And we're also super grateful because he just arrived from Australia to the UK, so he's probably super jet lagged. But having said that, John, hello, how are you? Tell us something about yourself.
Hi everyone, and thanks Marta. It's lovely to be here. Yeah, I've just in from Australia, but I guess I'm in that phase where I'm not quite certain whether or not I'm awake or asleep. So this is a perfect time for me. I'm in limbo. It's like something out of Inception. It's great.
Awesome. You're working right now on an AI project, but not really your background. You're not a very skilled AI person as far as you know. I mean, probably now you are. But what's your background? How did you arrive at where you are today?
Yeah, well, it's funny the people who are seemingly most skilled in AI have graduated from MIT in the last 36 months as a physicist, and now suddenly are experts. So I've been thinking about Self for 45 years, and so yeah, I hope I'm considered alongside those with 36 months worth of experience. But yeah, I've tried to, for the whole of my career, get machines to understand humans and work for humans and be subservient and obedient to humans, rather than the singularity dream of outsourcing our intellect to machines, which I think is a fundamentally harming and damaging thesis, and something that will only become apparent in consequence in retrospect. In the same way as Fire on Demand, which is the first human innovation, was seemingly a great democratization of power. It meant that anyone could wield power over everyone else. And the first thing that we did with Fire on Demand was burn everything, burn ourselves, burn our caves, burn each other. And over time, what happens is that the control of fire and the usage responsibly of fire happens. AI and the maturation of machine learning is not any different than that. We're in the burn everything phase. People willingly surrendering pieces of information, personal information, private documents into a void of large language models that don't necessarily have each individual's human rights at heart. Doesn't seem like it's harmful at the moment, in the same way as everyone joined Facebook and only over time realized that, hold on a minute, if the service is free, then we're the product, which is bizarre, bearing in mind how popular The Matrix is. We still think that that's science fiction. and Terminator 2 is still seen as science fiction, despite the fact that we're creating a new species, machines with brains, and we seem gleefully, with abandon, strapped into a car, hurtling towards a brick wall, arguing where to sit. And so, yeah, I think Self is the opposite of that. And I'm really looking forward to being able to show everyone that the alternative future of artificial intelligence doesn't necessarily result in something that is dystopian.
Yeah, so okay, so you seem to be like very much on the doom and gloom side of the thing, saying that like AI will eat us alive if we don't. But you're building an AI company and an AI product. How is that possible?
Yeah, I think it's very important to consider the Dunning-Kruger effect psychologically of how we as humans tend to think that we know enough and we are much more capable than we actually are. And so what starts with hallucinations in AI may look like trivial kind of a trivial oversight of information, but if that AI is involved in a drone strike, then there is a doom and gloom version of that. And I think that under this particular time of recording in October 2023, I think it's quite timely to mention that. So yeah, but I'm actually an optimistic person. I believe that there is alternative, and the AI version that I think is more opportune is in accordance with our human rights. And I'm a fan, especially of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the first clause of humans being born free. I think that the freedom that we enjoy as a fundamental human right should be something that's propelled by artificial intelligence. And I think there's huge opportunity for us, but I don't think that opportunity is to basically outsource our thinking to something that doesn't have our best interests at heart. I know that might sound a bit gloomy, but it seems absolutely absurdly insane to do that, just from a point of fact. So today I'm going to show an alternative, and I'm hoping that being pro-human is going to not be an outrageous standing point in artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, I think that that's the point where I should hand you over the wand and you can do the presentation, because I think you've already justified why you need to do what you need to do, and I think everybody would like to learn what it is.
Right. Okay. Well, I will guide us through a short slide deck, and so by now it should be apparent that Self is an ethical and private AI assistant. If anyone would like to download this deck, you can now or later, anytime you like, go to tinyurl.com/self-October. The capitals aren't important. I've just stylized it there to make it more obvious. So tinyurl.com/self-October. Everything I show you in this deck is then at your disposal to download. So the value proposition is that Self gives you back time. It's the most precious commodity. It's the thing that we are 100% running out of. And the thing that when we've run out of it, we all wish we had more of. So above money and above everything, you have time that we actually wish we had more of and don't have as much of. And so Self is addressing that as a value prop. But it does this by always working on tasks for you, connecting parts of your life together, and meaning you can spend more time doing more fulfilling things. And that is the general concept of time giving back through help. But Self can learn from a range of other AI platforms or real-life human assistants or the web and everything online to audition the best responses cross-matched against your preferences. And those preferences are remembered perpetually by Self, improving the AI the more you use it. And those preferences and that algorithm is only yours. It's not controlled by anyone else. It's not accessed by anyone else. It certainly isn't a large language model. It's a personal language model. There's an internal currency, which is a reward system with a vast array of benefits, and that will mature into a crypto offering to time with the next bear market or bull market. And Self has two primary revenue streams of premium subscriptions and affiliate partnerships. The video that's linked to on this slide, you can either get from the download or you can go to self.app and look at the video, but don't bother doing that while I'm speaking, because that'd be a shame. The differentiation between self and everything else looks like this. If you look at the level of personalization and assistance, what we're seeking is to start from the top, as opposed to what's actually happening at the moment, which is starting from the bottom, and it's your data that's fueling the machine. You may recognize that from social media. AI platforms tend to work exactly the same way. Unlinked, agnostic, unstructured data that is then created into ordered specific contextual information that can then be monetized via different forms through advertising and so forth. I think that's missing a great opportunity, especially because of human rights, as I mentioned. But when things can be connected, dynamic, and personally meaningful, then we can end up with real insight, real intelligence, and real relational databases and data sets. And that's a structural choice. Current AI offerings build from the base, from a scientific focus, whereas we believe that there should be a human first ethos. And so every individual should be completely unique to that person and not linked to anyone else. And a lot of people have said on investor calls, well, what's your point of differentiation from ChatGPT? Surely they can do this. And it's not only is it not inside their benefit to do so, they have no business model to want to do so. Even if they knew how to do it, they wouldn't do that, because it would require removal of their entire commercial structure that they promised. And I think that every platform that exists out there in the market could see this as something that could even be a silly idea. It's almost too true. It looks like it's not scalable. The truth of the matter is the advantage comes in these 4 sections. One is that self, as it's learning you, can use real life personal assistant expertise to help self understand how care works, and that forms like an ethical guardrail. Secondly, the precise understanding of nuances between preferences, intent, and action is something that is individualized to you. So rather than thinking that every time a human puts an information into a standard AI platform like Inflections Pi or Replica or ChatGPT, the tendencies are homogenized, whereas in self it's individualized, it's hyper personalized. The focus, of course, is the entire offering tailored to each user, and everyone owns and controls their own data on their own self-service. And so these drive the business model and uniqueness and our moat, if you like. As I mentioned, it's highly unlikely that others will actually do this. They may think that there's scaling issues. A lot of people are now starting to use personalization, and some people are even using the word ethical because, you know, it's a fashion item to mention these things in press releases, but that's not actually an architectural thing. Mass market saturation is the objective, and ours is actually not. Ours is that sovereignty is key, and we would prefer to be a small and as near to perfect AI for you individually than have 500 million users with technology dementia and hallucinations. That's not a model that we're interested in. As an example, a self-user recently asked ChatGPT for help, saying, I'm in Hastings, mother-in-law's house, need to get back from Cambridge today, plot me a route home, I've got a call between this time, need somewhere where I can actually make that call. And ChatGPT says, okay, here's the instructions, here's some options. And the user says, but they're not an hour away from Cambridge, which is what that user specifically said. Then ChatGPT, of course, including an advertiser, because, you know, business model, has the kind of apology saying, I apologize for the oversight. Here are 4, but then I recommend checking. And that's the multi-billion-dollar brilliant market leader. Of course, the alternative is that self answers the same question, knowing the user's past preferences, how they like to be, they like instructions to be sent, the tone of voice, in the way that a private personal assistant would know. Says, of course, the journey is this, it's showing this time, here are the directions, recommend leaving this exit. Here's a recommendation of where to go. It's a few minutes from the exit. If you park at the top, you can follow the signs, you can grab get a drink and a comfortable bench. Hope it goes well. Looking forward to assisting you again. So that's what self does. People may say, well, how much of that is completely unique to that user and how much is a stock standard pattern. We have an entire black box delicacy in the background that links all these things together, and I will go through that with you behind the scenes after this presentation. So your questions around how could this be possible will be answered. I'm not going to go through the testimonials. It's great that some people see Self as being part of the family. It's awesome that I would say 80+% of users don't use Google search anymore. They just use Self. And so, yeah, it's been an honor to help. The first revenue stream is partnerships, and they're through affiliate links. And the key is that we're going to get from the affiliate commission, we're going to split that between the parties, the buyer and the seller and Self, in crypto. And so we're going to buy Self coin on behalf of the user with our commission that we've earned, and buy it on behalf of the retailer with the commission that we've earned. And so it creates a perpetual buy pressure on the coin and makes buying through Self more rewarding than buying not through Self. And you can imagine what that does to the business model. The membership, these are just indicative prices. There'll be a far greater version on top. Premium will be significantly more expensive than that if people want it to be, if they actually want to engage even a real life person to help them with things. And so the benefits are still being modeled. From 2 weeks time, well, either next week or the week after, we'll start trialing the subscription tier user mechanics. So anyone can go to self.app, you can join the waitlist now and be part of the trials. The phases at the moment, we're looking for the first 1,000 users, ARPU $10 a month, which we're already at in terms of ARPU. Industry standard retention, we've beaten fourfold. So then our next is moving into phase 2. We want to get to the first 100,000 users at $20 a month average revenue per user and increase our retention if that's possible. Phase 3 is when we move into from the assistant and browser into increased automation into an operating system. Yeah, Self is actually intending to be an OS. And we will start with an assistant, then as a browser, and then move into your very own operating system. We want that to be platform agnostic and device agnostic, but there is handset play there as well and a satellite play in the mix. When you download the deck, you can look at the tech overview video. You don't need to actually, because I'm going to go through an even better version in person with you. And behind the scenes, I'm going to give to you. But the technology essentially works like this. I'm not going to go through this in very much detail now because you're going to see the back end in a sec. But yeah, so we have a lot of what and why models going on. We have preferences, which obviously you're completely sovereign. The Self stands for System Effective Lifestyle Filtering. So I've been thinking about how to build this for decades and started coding it 15 years ago, patented in 2017. So when people arrived at artificial intelligence most recently, it's something that I was knee deep in for many years beforehand. And ironically now, of course, as we're trying to raise, a lot of the answers from investors is that we're either too early or that the AI investment market has already been saturated with funds already going to these big platforms. But that won't stop us. We'll succeed, and it's just a matter of time. And we just keep building in the background. We're running lean, bootstrap, and we'll get there. So I mentioned the phases. We've got an incredible leadership team and a network of absolute geniuses around the world. And yeah, I think it's about time to go to the to have a look behind the scenes. But do go to self.app and register if you wish to be part of that and have a play. Marta, shall I go into the demo now? Or would you like me to answer?
Well, there are many questions that I want to ask you, and there's already one question from Francisco. What are some of your current affiliate partners?
Yeah, we've got Booking.com, Amazon.com globally, Skyscanner hotels. We're just moving into the automotive space. Someone bought a $100,000 car through Self a month ago. So now we're looking at car partnerships. One of the first key hires outside of our core team is going to be global head of partnerships that aggressively builds out more and more partners. It is probably the prime business model, the partnerships. Self is ostensibly a personal shopper concierge. It's extremely effective at finding people's best prices and knowing what you like. If someone said to Self, who's been speaking to Self for maybe 2 days or 3 days, and Self has got to know them. I'm looking for a new range of bikinis to go on holiday with in my favorite color. Then Self knows all of the information that it would need to know to find those products for you. Try typing that into an AI platform. So yeah, it's useful. It's useful to look at the partners, and Amazon and Booking.com have been massive for us. But we're also a CJ.com partner, so that's 31,000 affiliates. So yeah, it's quite sizable.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting part, right? Which is like I love ChatGPT for all sort of reasons, and I think that it's a massive productivity booster. But day to day, it's not something that I use, for any kind of other thing than productivity, right? And I wouldn't ask ChatGPT of like, oh, where should I buy my cat food or something like that, which is something that actually, so as I mentioned, I'm a user of Self, and actually Self will remind me of saying, hey Marta, I think you're running out of your cat food. And which is like, it's so magical when that happens. But that goes now to a question that one of our guests is asking: how is the data stored to ensure privacy? Some of you may know I have a background in security and privacy, so I was the first person to ask some of those questions and be very hesitant to do it. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the privacy aspect of?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have an extraordinarily complex technical architecture, which in the deck you can click on the link to some of that. I'm going to show you bits of it in terms of how the brain works, but there's also technical architecture slides you can link to within the deck. We use a combination of grid compute, Kubernetes clusters, and Minima decentralized node infrastructure. So Minima, which is the only completely decentralized blockchain network, that i.e. that every single node is a validator. There is no centralized components. There's no majority share. Everyone runs their own node. So in Self, everyone, as soon as you create a Self account, it spins up a node for you in the cloud. That then, using our grid compute architecture, enables a Self server for each individual person, but also you can roll your own hardware if you like as well. So you can, if you'd prefer to run your entire server physically, you can. And so yeah, I've been talking about privacy and data for decades. So this is not a minor point for us. It has to be completely sovereign and yours. Alaya said, how do you make sure that partnerships won't influence product recommendations? The only thing that influences product recommendations is the user. So if the user wants to find something that suits their personal profile and they would prefer to use a partner, then the user can say, use this partner, because the user will actually earn crypto through that if they want. Equally, they can just say, I just want the cheapest price for a flight to Paris, and I don't want to use this as a crypto back reward. Fine. Here's your EasyJet thing from Stansted. It's 49 quid. Buy here. And if we haven't got an affiliate partnership with them, the user doesn't get any cash back via crypto. That's totally fine. But I mean, it doesn't. To us, we suspect that users would prefer to earn whilst they're spending as opposed to not. But anyway, that's hopefully that answers that. Would you like me to go through the little demo? Or a few more questions?
Demo, and then we can dive a little bit more into the tech and kind of why did you decide on those techs and what so not. So yeah, show us what Self does.
Okay, I'm going to share my whole screen, so don't get put off by seeing yourself for a second, Marta, in all its majesty. So I'm gonna, hopefully you can not see yourself now, just minimize that. So you see a chat on the left and a brain on the right.
Yep.
Great. So what we're going to do, one of the users at Amazonia who calls Self Simon is in the time zone GMT. We're going to look at a conversation between Amazonia and Self. Now, I'll just explain the screen layout to you. So on the far left-hand side, we have the chat window with Amazonia and Self. And that's actually, I can run that either on a loop or I can go up and down the chat. So I've just videoed a screenshot from that. And then on this side, we've got Amazonia's brain. And on the right hand of that, you'll see a lot of different notes and links and all kinds of things that we're going to get to in a second. So bear with me as you go through this, because you may get lost. And so I'm going to kind of slow down at some bits just to emphasize some points. So Amazonia starts by saying, hi, Simon. Self says, Amazonia, hope you're enjoying the warm sunshine today, because of course, Self is connected to the internet with weather forecasts and knows where Amazonia lives. And Amazonia says, amazing. Are you at your favorite place? Now, favorite place is something that Amazonia would have said before. And my favorite place turns out to be this health club called Champneys in Tring. And if you look on the left, in the middle, sorry, at the brain, you'll notice that we've now gone from her oversight of the whole of the brain, and inside likes in capital letters on the left-hand side will have gone through into the health club membership, which is her favorite place. If you look at the brain again on the neural nets, you'll see the connection to likes, and you'll see other things which we're going to get to in a second. And so linked to that like inside the brain, there's also a coffee and snacks part. I love soya cappuccino and normally grab some fruit toast or popcorn and work with my notebook. So on the left-hand side, Self says, are you at your favorite place with a soya cappuccino and your notebook? So it's linked together related likes that tend to be the case. It's not presumptive. So it's asking Amazonia whether that's the case. She may have said no, right? So it's not saying you are doing this. In the future, if a user wanted Self to know your location, yourself to know your location, then that would obviously make that much easier. So Amazonia said, I wouldn't go anywhere without my notebook. And then Self then moves on to other things that are happening in Amazonia's life right now. For instance, have you completed your CBT homework for this week? And Amazonia says, yes, sir, ahead of schedule on that one. Thanks for checking. So and that's because on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's some homework that was set on the 20th of September, 2023. So then Self says, what are your plans for this week? And then Amazonia says, Sarah and I. So immediately on the right-hand side, Sarah as a keyword gets pumped into our relational net, our neural net, and Sarah comes up. And so if you think about this, that's happening is that there's preferences, there's likes and dislikes, and relational links between things in a conversation. It's like a constant search mechanism looking up and seeing what things are linked to each other. And in the behind this, we use a range of different tools that actually give a weighting to how much a preference is a preference. So I'm showing you the first abstraction layer here is in terms of keywords and relational net. So Amazonia says, Sarah and I are going for afternoon tea this Friday. And so Sarah, the brain sees Sarah, afternoon tea. So if you look on the left-hand side of Sarah, you'll see 5 different things. You'll see Daisy & Co, favorite, which I'm going to show you in a second, getting nailed, which is actually getting nails done, health club membership, which we know about, and Italian. So Self now can work out that one of these preferences is likely to be next, if you like. So Self picks the favorite. When you say favorite, it was favorite cake parlor. So it's called Blossom and Wild. So Self says, far left, are you going to Blossom and Wild? And Amazonia says, yes, they also have an alcohol license, which then what would happen is that Self would then enter the alcohol license as an important thing in this favorite cake parlor reference of Blossom and Wild. Because Amazonia has shown that there's some form of preference to that. And then Self goes through the other preferences and you may remember getting nails, which is getting nails done. So Self says, will you go for manicures at Lisa's too? All right, then that's obviously something that Amazonia says, so you're amazing, Simon, because she calls Self Simon. Not this time, I hope to get another week of wear out of them, which of course means that Self then puts in a silent behind the scenes reminder for a week's time to remind Amazonia that is now the time to maybe want to book an appointment at Neil's, to Lisa's, And as you'll see underneath the title on the far right-hand side, you'll see that there's actually a direct link to a booking page that Self's already registered, so that if she says yes to the reminder, Self can book that appointment for her immediately. Far left-hand side, Self is moving through various different things that are on top of Amazonia's mind as recorded, and she's mentioned that she's bought a new pair of nice pair of clear-framed Armani Exchange glasses for computer work a few weeks earlier. So Self says, "Are you enjoying wearing your new glasses?" So she says yes, as they are clear and less conspicuous. And then the final one of the preferences in this set is horse racing. So when's your next trip to Windsor Races? It'll be the season finale soon. How does Self know that it's the season finale? Well, she's already mentioned on the 6th of May that she likes going to the annual membership. She's got an annual membership, Windsor Races, but only when it's fair weather. Self then pulled up the fixture list, which is a simple Google search to find the Windsor Racecourse fixture list. You can try it right now in Google. Pull down the PDF, enter it into the relational neural net, and then when you open that, you can scan the fixtures list for character recognition. Bottom right-hand side, you'll see that the Monday the 23rd is the last race of the season, right? So it will be the season finale soon. Not rocket science. Well, it is, but anyway. So she says, "I know, I'm hoping to go on Monday the 16th of October, depending on the weather." And we know that because she had already said that fair weather race goer doesn't like it when it's raining, as it's all outdoors. So that's a known thing. Interestingly, she's also mentioned before that she likes wearing white jeans on days like that. So Self says, "I hope it's a white jeans kind of day for you." She likes these jeans with elastane, and she's also got a new supplier in the 1st of September, which is from a retailer called Nobody's Child. So Amazonia says, "Yeah, so do I. You know, I love wearing my white jeans." So Self says, I know you've started to wear Nobody's Child. I thought you might like these white jeans while they're on sale. They have them in your size, as they have 2% elastane too." Now, you may think, "Oh no, this is where advertising kicks in." No, this is because earlier Self had actually been instructed by Amazonia to find any deals on the new products that she's into. So Self then finds the deals as she requested. Okay, so we're now going to spin forward. So we're just going to play a bit further. Amazonia says, "Hey Simon, how are you going? How are you doing, Amazonia?" "I'm well. I sat here with Sarah." So Sarah gets triggered again as before. She says, "A cup of tea." Now, every time that a cup of tea is triggered, the favorite choice in the past has been Earl Grey. So then on the left-hand side, are you drinking Earl Grey? Straightforward, right? "No, I've started drinking Rooibos. I used to drink it years ago and I've forgotten how much I like it." So Rooibos then gets entered. This is a new link now to likes, Sarah, and Earl Grey. If you look in the middle part, so you can see how the brain has now linked these things together. Self then does a search on Rooibos tea benefits, because Self is on the mission to try and help you and make your life easier. So sends a link to top 5 health benefits of Rooibos tea. "I read this article earlier, top 5 health benefits of Rooibos tea. I think you'll find it useful." Why? Because she said that she started drinking it and she's forgotten how much she liked it. So that happened without her asking for that, but she is that type of person that likes things that are useful pieces of information. That's the kind of person she is. She says, "Simon, you're a superstar. What would I do without you?" And then final example for now is now a task. So I'm looking for a trigger word. There's 70,000 phrases in the common English language, and phrases that are verb based, which is to do, are relatively easy to map. So I'm looking for, I'm trying to, are all straightforward. Some people, they don't even say the word "I'm," but the verb part of that kind of happens deeper in the paragraph. So out of the 70,000 phrases in the English language, about 10% of them are verb-based like this. So it's not hard to see a task being generated by that. We used to have the requirement for people to put #task, but you just don't actually need to, because we can actually map it into the natural language processor. So I'm looking for a new weekend hold-all bag, something in neutral color, faux leather, around £100. So this now becomes a task. Time stamped on the 5th of October 2023, point 1. The point 1 top right is the first task. If it was only one task that day, it would still be 0.1. If there was 4, then it would go 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, so forth. So 0.1 says, find the response, Katie Loxton. Here's a link. And so it comes in 89.99. Self knows that that's below the budget of 100. And then Amazonia says, I'm looking for a business advisor who specializes in SMEs for my children's wear business, needs some support in making decisions. Self logs it as another task, 0.2. And then the response is written there. And then Self tends to sign things off by saying, let me know how may I assist you. You'll also notice on the left, she says, these look perfect, Simon. Thanks, Simon. So Self has done good. And so all of that interaction that I've shown you, there's a constant performance score so that how Self does is known. Her response is known. So if her response is negative or ambivalent, that's known, and it then changes the weighting of that correspondence in terms of the factors that are in there, not just what happened, but why things may not have been as liked or disliked. So that's where the magic happens behind the scenes as well. So that is the end of the little demo, and yeah, open to any questions.
Well, we have 2 from Ricardo. I guess there is one kind of implicit as well in the chat. So first question that Ricardo asked is whether the Mindgraph specification is open. Is there an exchange format that could be used for export import and integration with external tools? Also, Clemens mentioned Roam research and kind of importing Roam into the brain.
Yeah. So firstly, the Mindgraph spec is open, but only on the user control. So if there is a need for an extensibility, then Self would say to the user, we could use this information for X if we abstracted this piece of information through to this other tool. Do you want that to happen? So the answer is yes, but only when it's under the control of the user, if it's explained in a way that the user can understand. If the user can't understand the need or the benefit of doing so, then it won't just happen in the background because, you know, we know best for human rights and privacy. No. Does the Mindgraph handle, for example, how my taste may change? Yes, Clemens, Ricardo, sorry. You'll notice that everything was timestamped. So the most recent thing, let's take Rooibos, is more recently timestamped than Earl Grey. So Earl Grey, not only in the background, has seen as a higher preference now, but it's also a more recent preference. So this is a dynamic moving target. It's not a static snapshot of, well, I used to like this a year ago, therefore I still like it now, which of course the entire advertising industry is based upon, which is why if you buy a World War II book on Amazon for your grandfather at Christmas, you have the next 6 months of World War II books advertised to you, which is absolutely disgraceful and abhorrent to me. Francisco says, have you considered partnering with personal assistant agencies so they can use this technology to interact with their clients and step in when self can't perform some tasks? Absolutely. I think that we already have one personal assistant agency that we're in close conversation with. As people will realize within the next 21 days, there is a absolute play here for people to be able to get easier access to real life human assistance at better prices using Self on certain tasks if the user wants. And so, yeah, again, I mean, without sounding like a broken record, the answer is always to every question going to be, if that's what the user wants, then yeah, absolutely. But we have to be completely transparent about how things are operating in the background due to our manifesto. If you go to self.app/manifesto or just click on the website and click on the manifesto link in the menu, you'll read the manifesto of what this is about. And I wrote that manifesto ages ago. And it's everything has to be built on those principles, and everyone we hire, everyone we engage to work with, every conversation that we have, every terms and condition, every form of statement that Self makes or behavior that Self has is based on the manifesto. We take it extremely seriously. Marta, did you say that there was another question in the chat somewhere?
No, that was a similar thing of the integrating with Roam research. So importing Roam into the self, and whether that's possible.
Yes. So yeah, Clemens, well said. So in the same way as being able to extract outward, the import inward is most certainly on the roadmap. We want to do one thing more than that actually as well, is we want to expose your brain to you so that you can edit your brain, add things to it, and including import stuff into it. And so it's I would say a 2024 roadmap definitely includes your ability to access your own brain and change. It also 2024 includes integrating your calendar and email as you wish, if you want. I would say 2024-25 is multi-format import, because the whole thing is about XML schema then. So we need to create some form of handshake mechanics to allow it, which is not a small task. But if I've got something that contains a boatload of my preferences and mapping, then I don't want to recreate that inside Self. I'd prefer to actually just import the whole thing. So it's an easy use case to argue, and therefore it's in the phase 2 of, we're at the beginning of phase 1. So that's definitely a phase 2, but it's not phase 3 or 4. So yeah, it will happen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that springs to mind is Amazonia clearly like really enjoys chatting to Self and being like, hey, I'm sitting here and I'm doing that, which is like, I get it, because it's quite kind of, you establish a relationship. It's a robot, but it's much more like Her, the movie Her style thing, where you kind of start talking. And definitely the fact that you also have now I believe voice capability, so you can actually chat to Self in voice, not only typing, is something that helps you to have that conversation almost like fluidly, and let the Self learn about you. However, it is a big challenge because, well, at the moment where you start using Self, you're probably a 20-something adult. I wouldn't imagine that 5-year-olds start using Self, and that then means, of course, that you have to upload so much of your like personal information into the system, which must be a little bit of a kind of user barrier, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we've started with this kind of zero interface, no onboarding, no. I mean, at the moment we're doing bring your own messenger, so we're using Signal. We've even, I mean, the Self app is actually in the apps, the Test Flight app store, and we've to get rid of people looking at the interface and go, well, that's not right, and that should be bigger or smaller or whatever. We sort of scrap that. We just use Signal as the onboard, the interface, and the onboarding is, here's the user guide. Here's an example of how Self can be used. Let's go. And we didn't want to go through the worst case scenario, which is you download an app, you spend 15 minutes setting up your profile, and then you get hit with a paywall. So that's not what we want. However, I mean, the reason my voice is a bit croaky is that I've been the last 5 hours in a Self meeting about these very subjects. So one of the things that we're toying with is, how could we onboard better with profile information? And I think we're soon to experiment with people going through a bit of profiling, because the truth is, the more Self understands you, the better Self can be for you. And some people set up a Self account and go, they say, is my flight on time? And it's like, how would Self know? What have you told? Self is literally a blank brain when you start. So if you tell Self about your things, then Self can be way more useful. And so, but we haven't cracked that by a long shot. It's one of the hardest parts of us working stuff out at the moment, is how to onboard in a way that each individual would absolutely adore. And it may well be a multi-choice process. We may actually give it to a stage where you can populate things easily yourself, or multiple choice, or sliders, or like a Tinder thing, like, do you prefer this to that? Do you prefer that to this? Or blank, which is just through conversation, which we call progressive disclosure. So it may well be that, but yeah, we're testing it all. It's in test mode.
Yeah, no, and I think it goes back to privacy aspect of it, and how do you not only just on paper say we really care about privacy, but also provably care about privacy to the point where I would feel comfortable saying, hey, here's all of my WhatsApp and Signal and email communication, like just dive into it. Just you know, build my little brain out of everything that I've done in my life, including my most intimate conversations with my husband, best friend, and so on. I think that would be like, yes, I would clearly do that to a technology that is absolutely privacy preserving.
Yeah, you are not alone. So that's probably one of the most popular requests. And if people can see, like, actually see that their information's theirs, and show, like, see that, not just understand like the concept of privacy, but tangibly, palpably see the privacy that they have, only then will they, as you say, well, okay, have at it. But I would say over 50% of self-users ideally would say, look, here's access to everything, build the map. That's kind of that's at least 50% of the requests. And it's kind of like, it's charming, because to be honest with you, maybe people don't need as much convincing that it's completely theirs, but I do. And I have to. I'm so complete. I mean, you know, the 23andMe hack recently, right? I was just like, geez, it's like you had one job, 23andMe. If you take people's DNA, you now have one job. You're in the business of cybersecurity. That's your business, son. Anyway, so a whole different rank.
Yeah. So just, you know, for those of you who are those of the guests who are a little bit more kind of deep into the tech, how did you choose the blockchain that you're using? Why did you choose blockchain in general? Like, you know, is it just hyping one technology over the other?
Yeah, so the reason why we chose Minima, not only because I was part of the team that constructed that architecture, but if you think about what self needs, it needs to have the ability for each individual user to power their own server, and that's important. And when you look at having your own server, how it's powered is who controls it. This is a critical point, and something that isn't spoken about much, because, you know, if Dropbox really disclosed that, you'd be like, well, hold a minute. So basically it's my cloud, but it's your power, so it's actually your Dropbox. But no, sorry, look over here. So I think it's very important to look at where things are powered. So I'm just gonna just quickly share my tech architecture slides to describe what that looks like. So we'll go back to this in a second. This is the NX version. So we have the each individual self-server. This is a self-server concept, right? So you've got an ephemeral Docker container and a persistence mount linked via APIs. So how that's linked is via the together, which is obviously that part of the container, then to all other self-servers to direct peer-to-peer grid compute, which actually, you can imagine what that means. And then the centralized self-management and the agent UI side, which is where the continuity of the whole service is held up, which is the self company, which is not decentralized. And then we have the direct via RPC parts to the layer 1 blockchain of Minima, which is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of fully constructing and validating nodes. So in the Minima stack, we have obviously the full node, the wallet, and there's a core Java side, and then database. But that's from Minima. You can go to minima.global and read the documentation. It's extraordinarily well documented. In the AI models, we use each individual algorithm has got a selection of various different what and why interplay, which is what you've seen on this map here. So on the right hand side, the what model and the why model. with the fine tuning and the Shapley stuff. So this is the Docker container diagram on the left of these two. On the right hand side is the persistence store, which is obviously the bit that enables memory to be persistent throughout. So that's the kind of any amount of per user instances. But on this top one, this is the one-off self-architecture and the kind of the high level components of the Node.js application that we run multiple processes off. So at the moment, we're using Payload CMS for the moderation, because in the test mode, as Self is learning how to care for people, we've got real life human assistants that are accessing conversations at user requests through this Payload CMS backend, and that then can ensure that there's no hallucination and that it's all working correctly. So we've got various different parts of that going on the right-hand side, but I think one of the other points that people might ask is, okay, so how does the Kubernetes side work and how do we power this? So I mentioned the bring your own hardware, bring your own cloud, that's the BYOC bit, but we enable this to deploy on any cloud. So we do a round robin at the moment through AWS, Google Clouds, and Azure, and it just goes to and from, to and from, to and from. And so it's not only anonymized, but it's powered in a decentralized way so that we don't have being held over the barrel by an end user license agreement from any of those things. But as I said, you may also bring your own cloud, which is totally fine. So yeah, so there's I mentioned about the Payload CMS part, and we've had a look at the relation network, and so yeah, there's if you can link to this inside the deck, and someone's put this in the chat. I think there's a link to the video where I actually walk through this. If there's anyone who's watching this and is an investor, whether it's an angel investor or anyone with over £5,000 as a check size to get in on the round, the valuation, pre-money valuation, is £3 million at the moment. We've got 9 angels and we've got another 600,000 to go before the seed is shut. And then we have a whole range of Series A investors waiting in the wings that have written intent. But yeah, if anyone's watching this as an investor, then you could at any stage have a call with Rob, CTO, who is happily available to go through all of that in ridiculous detail. So as geeky as you are, I assure you that Rob is geekier. And all I did was come up with the concept of how it should work and the ethos behind it. And I've done quite a bit of coding myself on this in our Bootstrap mode. But Rob has been instrumental in how the brief fits, how my brief fits the modern architectures. Because my what if this, what if that, and is that actually private? Is this decentralized? Can it work like this? How do we ensure that data is only theirs? That's, I'm militant about that stuff.
Awesome, that's super cool. Are there any more questions from the audience? Either raise your hand or pop a question into the Q&A. I'll give a few more minutes. So outside of Self, what are you excited about in the AI world? Is there anything that you're excited about?
In the World Wide Web in '93, when Hughes, May, and a few others were speaking in the chat rooms about what became a relatively anarchistic view of the cypherpunk outlook, I was looking more on the privacy, human rights aspect rather than overthrowing things. What we didn't know was going to happen between '93 and 2000 was a complete cluster F of everyone playing with the tools of the World Wide Web without any consequence. And then the dot-com boom and then bust happens, and people then realize the consequence of what they're playing with. So what I'm excited about in the AI world is we're in the same place. So this is the boom, and what happens in the boom is non-consequential, relatively ignorant, blind experimentations, people in some instances giving out their eyeball recognition to projects, and yeah, I think we just play with it all, and then we realize the consequence. Because of Moore's law, it won't be 93 to 2000 this time around. It will be more like 2003 to 2005, and then people will realize that the consequence of abusing human rights with artificial intelligence is possibly the most existential threat that we have. Someone said, Joshua said, how do I add self to Signal? You go to self.app and you put in your details. So yeah, that's so I'm excited about that, because we're on the right side of history on this one. But we don't see it in an arrogant way. It's not kind of a smug way. It's actually massively frustrating. We'd like not to be bootstrapped. It'd be nice to be as funded as Replica AI with their $6 million, and with the kind of soft porn approach of not safe for work correspondence, which is not helping humanity in any way. We'd love to have that $6 million. We could actually help humanity with it. But it's tough. Just because you're doing something that's worthy doesn't necessarily mean it's seen as investable. If we were talking people's private data and selling it to advertisers, we'd be funded by now. But this isn't my first rodeo, so I think we'd prefer to stay ethical and wait for the other foot to fall on what people are abusing in human rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's my wish to you, and I hope everyone here enjoyed the talk as much as I enjoyed talking to Jonathan. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and I hope you enjoy using Self. And now you'll be all kind of stuck with too many users, I'm sure about that. Thank you so much, John. Rest up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.